Welcome to the video, my friends. Hope you're doing great wherever you're watching this from. Things are heating up even more in Venezuela, and the breaking news is that Nicolas Maduro has dug in his heels even more, as if that was even a possibility. He's refusing to budge even as the U.S. under President Trump piles on the pressure. The warships in the Caribbean are now operating in a way that shows Maduro how Caracas could be struck. The B-52 shows of force, the B-1 shows of force, the F-35s. Everybody down there that's a part of the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Air Force is basically saying, Maduro, make our day. But here's the big piece that I wanted to break down today, and that is Russia and China seem to be backing away from Maduro, which is something we didn't really expect to see. So was there some sort of deal, some back office deal where basically Russia and China were promised to continue to get the oil that they need from Venezuela, or for Russia to continue selling its refining products for Venezuela's sulfuric oil? Was that a deal that was made, and now Russia and China are kind of like, yeah, we don't really want any part of this. We don't want to ruin a business relationship with the U.S. And again, Russia's A340, that massive cargo Airbus, was intercepted by F-18s. And yeah, if that's not a statement that the U.S. is serious in the south part of the Caribbean, then I don't know what is. So maybe the escalation that we're seeing now is to a level where even Russia and China don't want anything to do with it. China is always focused on trade talks when it comes to Venezuela. They talk about their business interests. That's one of the big thing. And they were backing their old pal Maduro. But now it looks like Maduro's regime is pretty isolated. It's basically fully isolated from Russia and China, or at least it's getting that way. It's trending that way. Now, there might be some back deals with them as well, where even Russian fighter pilots might have remained in the country. I'll do a full video on that tomorrow. But to me, this isn't just some diplomatic spat. It's not some just quick jab back and forth. This has real military stakes for Venezuela, having China and Russia back away. But Venezuela's army under Maduro and their air force is not going quietly into the night. That is not a part of their playbook. They are mobilizing hundreds of thousands in their air force, and they're scrambling their Russian-built jets even more than they have been this past week to show that they're ready. They're doing operations, aggressive operations near the coast, in operations that look like it could be the intercepting of U.S. naval vessels. Now, U.S. naval vessels are obviously ready for this, and I would hate to be one of those Venezuelan pilots if that was the mission that I was told to go do. But these SU-30's that Venezuela has, they can launch ship missiles, anti-ship missiles from dozens of miles away, if not more. They could basically take off, launch right from takeoff before they get hit, because they would get hit relatively quick by an F-22 or an F-35. But I want to break down exactly how that mission would go down with those SU-30's, putting the gear in the well as soon as they take off, and then how that would stack up against U.S. firepower that would be coming at them. How would they try to get those anti-ship weapons off? And how can the U.S. defend against that? So we're going to be breaking that down throughout this video, and maybe more of a shift into what the alliances and the lack of alliances for Maduro might mean in the next 24 to 48 hours. Is this going to kick off? And this is one huge pivot when suddenly your backers and your supporters realize that, yeah, there might be some better places to place our bets. That's going to be a scary situation for Maduro, and who knows how he's going to react to that. But let's talk about what Venezuela's actually got to back up this ferocity that likely Maduro is feeling and showing, basically saying he's not going to budge. There's a lot of tough talk, but there are a few things that could back that up, and that's those Su-30 Mk2s. They bought about 20 of them from Russia back in the 2000s. They're heavy hitters as far as Venezuela is concerned for air superiority. 50,000 pounds of thrust, turbofans, that lets them hit Mach 2. So again, these jets blast off from one of their obscure fields in southern Venezuela, Mach 2, that puts them in a position to try to take down one of our ships as quickly as they possibly can with an aircraft that's actually capable of it. Now, enter the F-35, enter the SM-2 missile, all the different defenses that the Navy's going to have. And yeah, it's basically going to be like a clubbing baby seals scenario, but there might be that tiny little window where the U.S. Navy really has to be ready for that. The Su-27 and the Su-30, they're very similar aircraft. Su-30 is a little bit bigger, and it's got the ability to dogfight in a way that's probably better than most fighter jets out there, most fourth-generation jets. Now, the F-16 is something they also have as well And that is a dogfighter at heart. That jet, you can just put it where you want it, rip that thing all around. So they might be thinking, blast these things off extremely low, stay right on the deck, map of the Earth, and in a last-ditch effort, try to go up and take down U.S. assets. And also Army-wise, Maduro is making waves, essentially. So he's basically putting an even tighter grip on his population. This is being reported right now, breaking news, that he's called up 200,000 plus troops. So a 4.5 million person Bolivarian militia, those are their civilian reserves. They're calling up 200,000 of them, and they're right now deploying them along the coast where likely some of the initial strikes could happen, or where likely they need these people to try to operate some of their surface-to-air missiles. Or maybe they've got tanks that they're rolling out right now. Probably a bad idea right now, tank warfare with, all the different drones, especially since the Department of War has basically doubled down on drones as of recently. But S-300 systems, those are all going to be manned as much as they possibly can. They're probably trying to get upgraded radars from Russia. That might have been what was on the A340. I mean, probably parts for the SU-30's, but definitely parts maybe trying to update and advance their radar system with that S-300. And to me, it's a last-ditch effort, but it's one that could actually pay off for Maduro. And when you've got that kind of thrust, when you can tap into that kind of thrust, you don't want to waste it, right? So if you have only a hammer, then everything is a nail. And that might be the position that Maduro is in right now. But we got to talk about what those Su-30's would do. Okay, so if the Su-30's blasted off and they weren't able to be struck on the ground, because that obviously would be the first obvious primary scenario for F-22s and F-35s. But let's say the F-22s and F-35s are holding a little further off the coast and they're not being used as a strike package per se, or as an offensive counter-air package, but they're more of a defensive posture. So the primary air-to-air loadout that they would be going up against is the R-77 active radar missile. The R-77 active radar missile that targets beyond visual range, it can pull up to 25 to 30 Gs in its terminal phase of flight. And it has the ability to countermeasure, to reject countermeasures that are trying to spoof it and keep it from hitting the actual enemy aircraft. They've also got, and this is probably the most important thing that I want to drive home, as they're being pushed into a corner, we know that they've got the KH-59MK cruise missile. That's a laser-guided missile with a 180 nautical mile standoff range. It's accurate to 3 meters. And that's just wild. Accurate within 3 meters. That's insane to make sure that we have our arms around. When are these things being launched? How are they being launched? How have they been updated? Especially right now, with Maduro feeling the pressure, with Russia and China stepping back, basically saying, yeah, sorry, man, you're not the racehorse we want to bet on anymore. We made a better deal with the actual administration in the U.S. We don't know. We don't know what happened behind the scenes when it came to those negotiations, those very important negotiations. And then Venezuela's got limited basically reach and look when it comes to the Southern Caribbean. They really can't see very far. Just based on a few of their ground-based radars, they can detect likely fourth-generation incoming fighters. But typically, I would say only if the U.S. wants them to see it. There's probably some strategies and techniques that the U.S. could basically just say hi to Maduro's front doorstep without them even know they're coming. But the U.S. Navy has E-2 Hawkeyes. Those E-2D Hawkeyes, I've talked about them in videos before. Those are likely up there right now flying sorties. They're likely up there giving information, as much information as possible, to higher headquarters, and they can do that via SATCOM radio. They can do that with direct feed, basically pumping the information directly to higher headquarters without the need to even send a text. Basically, higher headquarters seeing real-time what's going on. Those E-2D Hawkeyes probably helped the U.S. spot that Russian cargo plane that was diverted and unable to land. But now Moscow, with that situation, they're ghosting on some of their deeper commitments, and it's unclear if their training crews are sticking around, whether they're going to keep their pilots there to continue to train. We don't know exactly yet, but I'll be going into a full breakdown of that in tomorrow's video. Those Russian advisors actually flying combat missions, which is some of the reports we've been finding. So this is what Maduro's now, as of today, staring down on the U.S. side. This is a definite mismatch. I mean, at least on paper, I'm not saying to discount the enemy, but that Gerald R. Ford strike group is in the area. It's 11 warships, 15,000 sailors, and 75 aircraft. And then there's F-35Cs from the Marines that are based in Puerto Rico. The typical loadout of that Gerald R. Ford is going to be F-18Es and Fs, with the E being the single seat, F being the double seat there. Those are highly capable aircraft. But the F-35, something to hit at here, is if the actual hostilities kick off here soon, that is going to be leading the charge. Whether that is the initial wave or it's kind of in the back supporting the 4th gen fighters, that thing has a radar cross-section the size of a golf ball. And likely Maduro knows that, and he likely knows that's what's going to be the first aircraft to say hello and give him that, handshake from Uncle Sam. That thing carries JDAMs, Joint Direct Attack Munitions, and it can basically turn a dumb bomb. When you put that seeker on the front of it, that JDAM seeker, it turns a dumb bomb into the most highly precise precision surgical weapon that's pretty much ever been created. SDBs as well, small diameter bombs, are a part of this. MQ-9 Reapers can be carrying Hellfire. So when it comes to striking any boats trying to escape, if Maduro does try to escape without actually making the deal that he said he would, those MQ-9 Reapers would be tuning in and likely taking out any of those boats that are leaving if that wasn't a part of the deal. So again, Venezuela, what are they going to do? They've got to vote, right? Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. What I would likely see happen is some sort of evacuation that might start happening here in the next few days, where Maduro gets his inner circle, himself and his family, out of the country because they know that they're facing a highly advanced stealth threat and a highly advanced air-to-ground capable platform when it comes to the F-18. And that's just what Maduro doesn't want to have happen, right? He doesn't want to lose his life, doesn't want his family to be crushed. That's, understandable, but he's given the ultimatum and now he's waiting because he did give some pushback. Basically, he said that he wanted global immunity so that he couldn't be prosecuted anywhere. And he wanted to still be in control of the Venezuelan military. It's like, yeah, okay, bud. Yeah, you're still in charge. Yeah, okay. So obviously, Maduro is negotiating and he's setting his line in the sand. Then the Department of War and the Trump administration is going to set their line in the sand, and then we'll see where we meet. Obviously, the demands to still be in charge of the military after you're exiled is kind of silly, but that shows you what he's working with because he knows that he's got to have some protection and some leverage to not be prosecuted on a global stage because he knows what he's been up to for the last few years. So again, will this evolve into a negotiation that actually sees Maduro leaving the country? I wouldn't be surprised. But I wanted to just give you guys this breaking information that at this point, Russia and China have pulled many of their supporters. A lot of their advisors are likely on the way out. Will they keep some in there? I think so. But again, they have massive business investments in Venezuela. So with those massive business investments, you want to keep tabs. And the SU-30's operating there. Those are getting, parts every month from Russia. They're making money. The F-16s, Russia's probably helping to get parts for that. So I wouldn't be surprised. And then again, those KH-31s, having the ability for those to touch naval vessels is something that needs to be looked at very closely. So let's do some hypothetical situations. So let's say the U.S. enforces with an official no-fly zone. Right now we're kind of in this unofficial no-fly zone situation, which is basically a no-fly zone. But let's say it goes to a full no-fly zone. Then the Ford catapults F-18s from 500 miles from Venezuela. They stay low, but Venezuelan radar pings them late because they're flying so low. And then a pair of Su-30's from Marrakech scrambles. These are likely on alert right now. They climb to 30,000 feet in full afterburner. The lead Su-30 pilot vectors a Zook radar. That's a passive, electronically scanned, updated radar that they likely got from Russia. And they fire 4 R-77s from their formation 50 miles out. But the F-18's got a ace in the hole. It's got an EA-18G Growler in the formation that basically jams those missiles. The Su-30's don't know it, but the missiles are jammed to a point where they just fall harmlessly into the ocean and the F-18s continue onward. The Su-30's turn around too late. The F-18s launch AIM-120Ds, that newest advanced variant that schwacks the Su-30's, shredding them, turning them into cheese graters, falling into the ocean. But then at this point, the F-18's mission isn't over. There's a command and control structure in Caracas outside of the presidential palace that needs to be struck. So the F-18s roll in, dropping 4 JDAMs apiece, crushing that C2, that command and control center, and basically cutting off Maduro from communicating with his military. At this point, that early target, once it goes down, that might put Maduro in a position where now he actually wants to negotiate. So where do we go from here? So let's say we step up our ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and we continue choking off Maduro. So likely what I see the Maduro regime having is probably like a 6-month clock at best when it comes to managing everything themselves and using internal indigenous supplies and the ability to fly their own aircraft without advisors, their ability to maintain those aircraft without advisors, I see about a 6-month clock until basically everything is over. So I wouldn't be surprised if this drags on, but I also wouldn't be surprised if we start to see more paramilitaries roll into the country, more cartel members that are now blending in with the Maduro regime. Because when Maduro gets desperate, he's just going to turn to those that are still on his side, which at this point is a handful of his inner circle and some cartel mob style bosses. Again, a $50 million bounty on his head. I see about a 6-month maximum lifeline, but I do think at any point we could see this kick off at any day and we could see F-35s rolling into Caracas, basically rolling in like they own the place. Probably also ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance from XBATs, from Anduril Furies. That would be one of the best theaters, I think, to get those things in right now. But I appreciate you guys watching. Hope you enjoyed this breaking news update. I'll keep you posted as the situation develops. You can follow me on Instagram for more. You can follow me on X for more. And then, hey, go ahead and watch this video right here. When you watch this video right here, it helps the channel grow exponentially, and I would greatly appreciate it. I'll see you on this video right here. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, signing off.